if I call ICE, they'll pick up your mom or something like that. Hey, Shallon. My mom's an immigrant. Did that make you feel any thinner? Hey there. We're finally going there. You guys have been asking me for weeks to please, please, please cover Shallon Lester. And Shallon Lester has been on the tip of everybody's tongue for, I would probably say, the past month or so. Definitely while we've all been in lockdown and people are enraged. Essentially, this is a woman who is out on YouTube just spreading some ignorant, hateful bullshit. And the thing I haven't quite understood is, I guess, what the big deal is, because we know that there are hateful, ignorant people out in the world, and I guess it's because she has a large platform and is spreading lies and hate and all of that. So of course I've seen some clips of her here and there, especially as different drama channels talk about her. It's really hard to avoid seeing this woman's face. And because this is such an important topic right now to so many people, I thought that I might do a little bit of research this morning, just watch some videos about her to kind of get the scoop on who she is. That is one thing that has confused me, not really knowing who she is, but seeing her face around YouTube is like, how did this woman get a platform and why does anybody care? Who is she? Like, just why? Why? And as I watched these videos this morning, I realized that, oh, this woman used to be the editor or an editor for Star magazine back in I don't know what day. And I've gathered that that is kind of like the credential that she's holding on to. When, first of all, she just turned 35 years old. So she's essentially my age, I learned this morning, which is funny because by the looks of her, by the way she speaks, I would have thought that she had a much longer standing career in journalism or whatever it is that she does or did. So I don't know. I don't know how long she worked for Star magazine, nor do I care. Does anybody care, really? Is that really something that makes you any sort of reputable source? No. Looking back on kind of the celebrity magazines that we're in sort of a hierarchy in terms of reputation. We're seeing less and less print these days. So I'm thinking back to like the 90s and the early 2000s when I used to pick these up in the grocery store or subscribe to them. And there were, in terms of like celebrity magazines, you had magazines like Vanity Fair and People magazine that were kind of towards the top in terms of how much you could trust their reporting on these celebrities. They typically spoke directly to celebrities when writing articles about them. And then you kind of had magazines like Us Weekly and In Touch that were a little bit trashier, is not the best term, but kind of gets the point across, more of like the fast food version of like a People magazine. They still had the whole like sources say this and that, so you couldn't fully trust everything to be fact, but for the most part, the things that they talked about in these magazines were pretty factual and nothing too defamatory, so things stayed pretty light. There weren't any like outrageous claims or anything like that with magazines like that, from what I remember anyway. And then you had at the very bottom of the magazine rack, you had magazines like the National Enquirer and Star magazine. And there is a difference between a magazine and a tabloid. And we always knew growing up, and when I say we, I just mean like the general population, we knew not to trust tabloids for any sort of factual information. So kind of pulling that into an analogy, because you know how I love analogies, to YouTube reporting on celebrities and YouTubers, say. I would say that if most drama channels are like the Us Weeklies and the In Touches, Shallon Lester is the Star magazine or Star tabloid or whatever you want to call it. It's totally fitting. So it's kind of hilarious to me that this thing that is such a beacon of reputation and credibility for Shallon Lester is really, in my opinion, the opposite of that. Her experience at Star magazine tells me not to listen to what she has to say as any sort of factual information at all. These were the magazines that used to say, make big claims that, I don't know, Britney Spears was giving birth to an alien baby. Like, shit like that. And I'm not making that up. That headline I made up, but there were headlines that made claims that were like that. I think I saw something about a monkey baby, an alien baby. This stuff was bonkers, okay? It was just... Basically, Shallon Lester worked for a publication that just made up some sci-fi bullshit, tacked some celebrity faces and names to the cover, and made money for some time, I guess. Side note, I've been talking with my hands a lot, and I don't know if you can see much of my my fingernails. They look a little yellow right now, as if I've been smoking cigarettes on every single nail. It's not. It's because I was wearing yellow nail polish for the past week, and I just took it off, and I haven't done my nails again. Anyway, moving along. So there are a few clips that I have seen a few times from Shallon's channel talking about various celebrities and topics, kind of, that have come up that I can give my commentary on, I can give my opinion on, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's really going to change anything. Still interested in telling you guys what I think. And at the end, I'll talk a little bit more about what I think about her overall and why my opinion or anybody else's opinion really isn't going to change anything. But just diving into a couple of topics. One of the clips I see the most often is where Shallon is looking at a poster of BTS and really kind of, for some reason, she takes issue with the way the guys of BTS look.
Look at this one. I don't know which one he is. Look at those highlights, those chunky Tony and Guy mall salon highlights, and the contact lenses. You are an Asian man. You don't need to look like a girl named Ashley, L-A-I-G-H. You there with the silver hair. That's kind of a hot color. Uh-oh, look at the other side. This one, old Pinky Lee. How do you guys tell these people apart? Because with their hair, okay, this one I could see maybe knowing who he is because he has a different hair color. The rest of them all have the same hair color and the same eye color. I just think, is it weird that I think Asian people should be allowed to look Asian? I don't know. Call me crazy.
She calls them the women of BTS, but then says that she can't tell if they're men or women, then later confirms that they are men. So you can tell it's just her just being a... And yes, we know that this clip was just however many minutes of her showcasing her racism. She goes through each one. She says, here, this guy has chunky blonde highlights and these colored contacts. Here, this guy has silver hair. And then Pinky Lee, which... Where did you come up with that name, Shallon? What's that all about? But pointing out a band member with pink hair, and then is like, well, this guy up here has darker hair, and is kind of like sets himself apart. And immediately after that says that she can't tell them apart, for one, and two, that Asian men should just look like Asian men. And this is just so mind-boggling to me in so many ways because she's just contradicting herself from one sentence to another. As she went through that poster, she essentially told us how each member looks different from the rest of them. Has anybody noticed this? You've got Blondie here, you've got Silver Fox here, you've got Pinky Lee here, you've got the guy with the dark hair, and yet you can't tell them apart, okay? You also take issue with the fact that one of them, or more of them, is wearing colored contacts. Well, if they didn't wear colored contacts, just to let you know, Shallon. I don't know if you know this, but they likely will all have brown eyes, and therefore will make it more difficult for you to tell them apart. Because if you can't tell them apart with different hair colors and different eye colors as they are now, you certainly are not going to be able to tell them apart with their natural hair color and their natural eye color, where they look more like Asian men. You racist. Your argument makes no sense. And then we later see her make some sort of weird, again, nonsensical argument that if somebody calls you fat, then just say, well, at least my mom isn't an immigrant or something like that.
Well, at least my mom's not an illegal immigrant. At least if I call ICE, they're not going to send my family back to whatever fucking country I came.
If I call ICE, they'll pick up your mom or something like that. Hey, Shallon. My mom's an immigrant. Did that make you feel any thinner? Because I highly doubt it. I think all it does is showcase that you have an ugly personality. And whoa, you just gave your haters more ammunition. And because you acted so ugly in return, you're essentially giving them permission to be even uglier than they were in their original comment. So, bye. Oh, but also going back to the BTS thing, I find it really interesting because she takes issue with colored hair and colored contacts and just wishes these guys would just like look like their natural selves, I guess, when I'm pretty sure I saw it was confirmed that she has had various cosmetic procedures done. And I don't take issue with people having cosmetic procedures done. I take issue with hypocrisy. I think this woman is sad because as many cosmetic procedures as she's done, as many hair colors or eye colors she's probably tried, she still has an ugly ass personality. She talked about Pete Davidson and again said some things that really made no sense to me. She said something about, forgive me, I do not have the clips right in front of me. I'm going to find them in post. I'm just going off of memory here and just talking off the cuff. But I do remember her saying something about Pete Davidson going to rehab to get more drugs. Like she had this weird line of reasoning that was not very reasonable. She said something like he goes there, they assess him more or less, they kind of adjust his medication, and therefore he's going to rehab to get medication, which is getting drugs.
He is sober at the moment because he needs to be clean in order to be diagnosed, and to be diagnosed with things like bipolar and borderline personality disorder. And these doctors are always adjusting his medication. I mean, for bipolar, you can't be medicated for borderline personality disorder because it's your personality. There's no like cool pill, which is sucky. That's difficult. And so he goes to rehab when he feels like he's going a little bit too far, you know, so that he can clean out and then get adjusted, like have his meds adjusted. So he's going to rehab in service of getting more drugs. That's what that means. I go to rehab so I can con my doctors into giving me more drugs.
I don't think Shallon Lester knows what rehab is. I don't think I need to even explain that at all. Shallon Lester, do you think that going to rehab with an addiction problem and psychological problems is going to bolster your chances of walking out with more narcotics? That whole situation just makes no sense. You guys know I have videos about addiction and all of that on my channel. It's all just hot air at this point. She's just talking. I thought I had an opinion about that, but I think I just heard it and thought how stupid it sounded. If rehab is where you go to get more drugs, like recreational drugs, like fun drugs, then what is the opposite? Then where do you go to get better? I would understand if she said something about Pete Davidson doctor shopping to get more drugs, That is a real thing that people do to kind of continue an addiction or dependency, is to look for doctors that will give them the medications they want. That is a real thing. Rehab is the alternative to that. So yeah, just makes no sense. Oh, I saw a couple of times this clip where she talks about this time that Harry Styles walked by and said she was so beautiful and pushed her against a wall and made out with her for 30 seconds.
They were walking one way and me and her were walking the other way. And Harry, like, he just looked at me. He's like, "You're gorgeous." And I was like, "Yeah." And he like pushed me up against the wall and it was like this drive-by makeout. It was like 30 seconds of snogging. And his friend's like, "Mate, oi, come on, Harry." And my friend was up there and she's like, "Where did you, were you making out with Harry Styles?" And I was like, I might have just hallucinated. Did I hallucinate that? Did that happen? She's like, "Yes." What?
Okay. She's got an odd obsession with One Direction, it seems, and a lot of young pop stars for someone in her mid-30s. And yes, I realize the irony of that coming from a woman in her mid-30s that is on YouTube talking about people in their early 20s, but Shallon's obsessions are way creepier, and we'll get to that towards the end. But she did talk about Zayn Malik, I believe, and how he was leaning on his mental health struggles to get out of work, more or less, and she referred to this as a problem with white men. But then I believe in the same breath said, "Oh, I have anxiety. I know what anxiety is. I have medication for it." And then is like, "Boo hoo hoo, I have depression, blah, blah, blah." So she's like mocking depression, saying that she takes medication for anxiety.
But maybe he's depressed. Oh, I'm so depressed. He suffers from anxiety. Oh, that's interesting. A white man, most of them are, a white man on planet Earth suffers from anxiety and depression. I'm not saying that they don't. Some people do, absolutely. But you know what? They need to get the fuck out of the way and stop dating. They need to get the fuck out of the way.
So, for one, if this is the same Shallon Lester that thinks you go to rehab to get fun drugs, when I say fun drugs, you guys know that I'm like being tongue-in-cheek. But if this is the same Shallon Lester that thinks you go to rehab to get more drugs, then something tells me that perhaps the medication she's taking isn't for anxiety. I would venture to say that there might be a chance Shallon Lester does not know what anxiety feels like. And furthermore, if Zayn Malik talking about his depression is an argument for how mental health is such a white male issue, then why can't we say that you being on anxiety medication isn't a representation of mental health being a white woman issue? What does that even mean? I don't think Shallon Lester knows jack shit about mental health, but it's a hot topic right now, and so are celebrities like Harry Styles and Zayn Malik, and so you better believe that she's going to talk about these topics, and she's going to talk about these celebrities and not know jack shit about them or the mental illnesses she's talking about. And same here with this issue of her claiming that Justin Bieber hit Hailey Bieber so hard, because you see these photos where they're walking and he kind of either clotheslines or like kind of karate chops, like seemingly in a playful way in front of Hailey's face, and they're like laughing, so clearly it wasn't anything serious, and she even points out that they're laughing, but says that he hit her so hard.
This is what made me the maddest. He fucking karate chops her in the head hard, like hard arm, hard thing, just boom, and keeps on walking, and she's smiling and laughing, but he hit her hard.
These were photos, not video. So this only crystallizes for me how fake and speculative and defamatory magazines like Star are, because that sounds like some Star bullshit. And the thing about 17-year-old boys, Shallon's obsession with 17-year-old boys, sometimes 16-year-old boys, really just the youngest guys that she can sleep with, where she's done her research and they are legal due to the age of consent in that state because she's checked.
Am I?
You just call me adorable.
Really?
Is it because I'm 18? Am I like a little kid adorable? Does Lindsay Lohan think so?
You're actually older than most of the boys I date.
Sorry.
17 is the legal age of consent in New York, people. It's a fact. I looked it up. I will see you guys later. From Friends or Enemies, this is Shallon. Goodbye.
Any grown person who's checking consent ages so that they can see how young of a teenager they can sleep with is just, I don't need to say that. That's disgusting and concerning. I think all of the celebrity gossip stuff that is clearly fake, is clearly exaggerated, and is just mean and nasty. It's one thing to just kind of ignore that stuff. It is hearing this sort of language that makes me concerned that this person is just kind of out in society. And so this fixation with teenage boys, to me, is really the only element to the whole Shallon Lester saga that I think really we should be outraged over. I really haven't understood why anybody really cares that much about what this woman says about One Direction, about Pete Davidson, about mental health, about BTS, because here's the thing. She is a hateful, nasty, ugly, and when I say ugly, you know I'm talking about her personality. She is a hateful, nasty, ugly, ignorant person. We know that. But we also know that anywhere we go, there are hateful, nasty, ugly, ignorant people. And I don't know about you, but I don't have the energy to give to those people. And furthermore, as much as I like to value every human life out there, I can't place any value in the opinions of those people. If somebody walks down my street and is spouting some sort of racist, untrue things, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, that's a crazy person. Who is this weirdo outside? I'm not going to place my value in what that person has to say. But more than her just being ignorant, I think, to me at least, it is apparent that she is, to at least some extent, a troll. And I think we need to stop giving so much energy and value to the opinions of trolls, to the words and actions of trolls, as long as they are not committing criminal acts. And when I say troll, I am talking about people who will just say and do whatever they need to get your attention. And in many cases, we'll take a negative angle, we'll go ahead and gather views that are hate views, because they are views nonetheless, and they pay the rent. That is a troll that has sold their soul to the devil. And I think even on my channel, sometimes my viewers will not understand why I don't get more outraged about the opinions and the words of certain trolls. I just don't care. I told you guys from the beginning of this, when you asked if I would cover Shallon Lester, a lot of people were in my DMs and comments asking if I would cover Shallon Lester. And I said, maybe, probably not, because if someone's content is just garbage, I'm not interested, and so I don't know that I would have much to say. And now I have seen some of her content and it is pure garbage. So what else is there to say? I am concerned about her fixation with teenage boys. That is concerning. This is where we are towing the line of criminal activity. We've seen this here recently. We talked about Brandon Calvillo. We've talked about Onision. This is happening so much. Team Piñata, like, this is such a common theme for some reason on YouTube, and it is so concerning. And it is something that we are going to be talking more about in the coming weeks. That is the only part of this whole dumpster fire of a situation that is Shallon Lester's career on YouTube. If she says more about any celebrities that sparks any sort of reaction in me to where I will care to speak on it, to care to make corrections, I may hop on camera and say something, but this stuff is so blatantly dumb. It's dumb. It's trash. It's ignorant. But ultimately, we decide how much value we give to the opinions of other people. Yes, I understand she has a platform, and that is a lot of times when people want to state why they give value to a troll's lies and ignorance, they will say, well, this person has a platform where they're spreading information that's not true or that's defamatory. I get that. I would wonder how many of her subscribers and viewers are actually people who think like she does or are going to her videos to be educated versus people who are hate watching her. So yeah, she's got a big platform, but a lot of that is coming from the outrage around the things that she's saying about people when ultimately we know that it's all just lies. It's all just hate. It's all just coming from nowhere. So yeah, that's where I stand. I would be interested in any updates on whether or not that lady ends up in jail because she just can't keep her eyes off of men that are, well, no, not men, off of boys who are too young for her. I have no idea how long this video is, but whoever you are, the one person watching who's not me, thank you for watching to the end. Thank you for letting me kind of be a bit scatterbrained here and there. Thank you for letting me look off camera as I do sometimes when I'm trying to think and make sense of a world that doesn't make sense. Thank you so much. I love you. I am interested to hear what you guys have to say in the comments because I want to know where this value and outrage is coming from. And you guys are probably going to be able to teach me a lot more than Shallon Lester's videos alone will be able to. So I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Talk to you there. Bye.